The General Industries Workers Union, JIWUSA of South Africa, says it's dismayed and strongly condemns the government's handling of the Stilfontein Mine incident, where illegal miners have been trapped for several months now. Mametlwe Sebei, the president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, joins us now to further unpack this reaction. So, Mametlwe, great having you with us as always. Thank you so much for your time. So, you are currently condemning government's actions on your statements. Please elaborate your position.
Well, I mean, the response of the minister in the presidency is absolutely callous, heartless, and I think it speaks to the elite that has, lost touch completely with the reality of the masses on the ground, particularly in the context of the devastating levels of unemployment and, of course, poverty that is reaching levels of hunger and starvation, particularly in the mining communities which have been abandoned by the big corporations that are mining there. When they abandon the mine without properly closing them, that is sealing the holes and, of course, rehabilitating environment for alternative productive uses, it is also labor in those communities that they abandon. And I think what we're having here is a situation wherein government, instead of assisting these communities to ensure a development of sustainable post-mining communities, they are not. In that space, what then has happened is that the organized criminal syndicates have intervened to fill the gap, particularly when it comes to lack of support with access to capital and markets, and they are unleashing a reign of terror on these particular communities. And the levels of crimes that we've been hearing about in this situation is about that. But government also ought to know there's a difference between an ordinary former mine workers in the main who have been abandoned and, of course, are trying to eke out a living in the disparate, horrific conditions, and those organized criminal syndicates. There must be separation to that. And therefore, the way that the minister responds is almost by criminalizing the entire 4,000 people, many of whom are just who are disparate people that are trying to eke out a living, and government ought to be assisting them, regulating the industry, and in this case, ensuring that they focus on rescue efforts and to ensure that everybody is returned to the surface very safe and without harm to the police or the rescue team. And the community and families are saying we are there to help. And then beyond that, obviously, we'll have to look, what then do we do? What sustainable solutions do we find to the crisis that has led people into these dangerous and horrific working conditions?
Mametlwe, I was talking to Colette from a human rights body just before this interview, and she was also highlighting the very same issues, which are broader issues in relation to what we're talking about at this moment. So, in your view, what should be done? Do you firstly concede that the illegal mining operations are against the law, noting that there were in fact calls from these communities themselves for government to act, alleging incidences of rape as well as murders and even intimidation by some of these illegal miners? So when government then acts, how do you suggest they conduct their operations?
So let's be clear about it, right? People who suffer the level of violent crimes are first and foremost these communities. And the cause you are talking about is absolutely correct. But what actions do we need in this situation, right? We must separate. And as I've said, an organized criminal syndicates that have stepped into the vacuum are taking advantage, ruthlessly exploiting disparate mine workers and community members who have been abandoned by the big corporations and are forced to seek out a living in this. Many of them, these syndicates go open the mine, hire everybody, and unleash reign of terror, by the way, in collaboration for the most part with the police, who are involved in the illicit trading on the minerals. And there's a solution to that problem, right? The solution to that problem, which government recognizes at the moment, is that you regulate the industry so that the artisanal miners that are disparate former miners, their communities, and all those that, of course, are forced by unemployment and starvation to enter or to try and salvage what they can out of mines that big corporations have decided can no longer be mined profitably, that they are assisted and regulated in such a way that they can get permits, but also assisted with capital and access to the market so that they can mine in conditions that are very safe, regulated, and there's no need, therefore, for lots of these organized criminals, right? And in that situation, you are going to improve the quality of jobs, but also health and safety, both of the workers and artisanal miners themselves, as well as of the surrounding communities. At the same time, especially through access to the market, making sure that you undo illicit trading on minerals on the one hand, on the other hand, supporting a sustainable livelihoods to the extent that these mines cannot be reopened and operated on the basis that can provide a decent, permanent, sustainable jobs, like in other operations and so on. So we've got to find a sustainable, just solution. And the language we are hearing from the minister is not what you expect from the minister of a black majority democratic government elevated to power by the struggle for justice, struggle for equality, and struggle for human dignity. Is what you expect of the West regimes. Lest we not forget that this is a government that, echoing all of us, was at International Court of Justice just a few months ago, saying the Zionists who are using an access to food, water, and medicine as a weapon of war are committing a crime against humanity. We agreed with that. How is it that today, when we are faced with the same challenge, we are wanting to condemn 4,000 people, many of whom are the disparate and the poorest of our people, to an imminent death that they are facing, when there is alternatives in how we can be able to deal with the situation and make sure that there is a safe returns of everybody to the surface, and with the support of the families, of the communities who have stepped forward, who have volunteered, and at the same time, as we begin to then say, how then do we find sustainable solution to these problems? And by the way, when I speak about illegality, people are not saying who is responsible for this situation. People forget that it is mainly this licensed, big, predominantly foreign-owned multinational corporation whose illegality, non-compliance with SLPs, with environmental management, and including closure plans that are responsible for this disastrous situation in the first place.
Mametlwe, thank you so much for raising some of those issues there. Certainly, let's hope some of the relevant authorities are certainly listening as, of course, we continue tracking all those developments that are happening at Stilfontein. Mametlwe Sebei is the president of JIWUSA on the issues of those miners who are remaining underground in various disused mines, as I've said, in Stilfontein.